Welcome back, history enthusiasts. Today, we're embarking on an exciting journey to uncover the mysteries of the later Vedic period. If you're as intrigued by ancient history as we are, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to support more fascinating content. Later Vedic period, c. 800 c. 500 BCE. The principal literary sources from this period are the Samaveda, the Yajurveda, and the Atharvaveda, mainly ritual texts, the Brahmanas, manuals on ritual, and the Upanishads and Aranyaka, collections of philosophical and metaphysical discourses. Associated with the corpus are the sutra texts, largely explanatory aids to the other works, comprising manuals on sacrifices and ceremonies, domestic observances, and social and legal relations. Because the texts were continually revised, they cannot be dated accurately to the early period. The Dharma Sutra texts of this period became the nuclei of the socio-legal Dharmashastras of later centuries. Historians formerly assigned the two major Indian epics, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, to this period, but subsequent scholarship has rendered these dates less certain. Both works are mixtures of the historical and the legendary, both were rewritten and edited, both suffered from frequent interpolations even as late as the early centuries CE, and both were later converted into sacred literature with the deification of their heroes. Consequently, important as they are to the literary and religious tradition, they are not easily identified with a historical period. The central event of the Mahabharata, whose geographic setting is the upper Ganges, Yamuna Doab and adjoining areas, is a war between two groups of cousins, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Though the traditional date for the war is about 3102 BCE, most historians would prefer a later one. The events of the Ramayana relate to the middle Ganges Valley and central India, with later interpolations extending the area southward. The geographic focus of the later Vedic corpus moves from the Sapta Sindhu region into the Ganges, Yamuna Doab and the territories on its fringe. The areas within this land of the Aryas, called Aryavarta, were named for the ruling clans, and the area encompassed within Aryavarta gradually expanded eastward. By the end of the period, clan identity had changed gradually to territorial identity, and the areas of settlement came eventually to form states. The people beyond the Aryavarta were termed the Mlekas, or Mlechchas, the impure barbarians unfamiliar with the speech and customs of the Aryas. The literature is replete with the names of clans. The most powerful among them, commanding the greatest respect, was the Kuru Panchala, which incorporated the two families of Kuru and Puru, and the earlier Bharatas, and of which the Panchala was a confederation of lesser-known tribes. They occupied the upper Ganges, Yamuna Doab and the Kurukshetra region. In the north the Kamboja, Gandhara, and Madra groups predominated. In the middle Ganges valley the neighbors and rivals of the Kuru Panchalas were the Kashi, Kaushala, and Videha, who worked in close cooperation with each other. The Magadha, Anga, and Vanga peoples in the lower Ganges valley and delta were, in that period, still outside the Aryan Pale and regarded as Mlekas. Magadha, Patna and Gaya districts of Bihar, is also associated with the Vratya people, who occupied an ambiguous position between the Aryas and Mlekas. Other Mleka tribes frequently mentioned include the Satvans of the Chumbel River Valley and, in the Vindhyan and northern Deccan region, the Andhra, Vidarbha, Nishada, Pulinda, and Shabara. The location of all these tribes is of considerable historical interest, because they gave their names to enduring geographic regions. By the 5th century BCE, clan identity had changed to territorial identity, and the areas of settlement changed from chiefdoms to kingdoms in some cases. The state was emerging as a new feature. Assemblies such as the Sava and Paris had continued as political institutions into later periods. The larger assemblies declined. Rudimentary notions of taxation were the genesis of administration, as were the ratnins, jewels, consisting of representatives of various professions advising the chief. A major transformation occurred in the notion of kingship, which ceased to be merely an office of a war leader. Territorial identity provided it with power and status, symbolized by a series of lengthy and elaborate ceremonies, the abhisheka, generally followed by major sacrificial rituals, such as the Ashvamedha. This ceremony was a famous horse sacrifice, in which a specially selected horse was permitted to wander at will, tracked by a body of soldiers. The area through which the horse wandered unchallenged was claimed by the chief or king conducting the sacrifice. Thus, theoretically at least, only those with considerable power could perform this sacrifice. Such major sacrificial rituals involved a large amount of wealth and a hierarchy of priests. The ceremonies lasted many days and involved a reciprocal economy of gift exchange between the chief and the priest, by which the latter received wealth in kind and the former established status, prosperity, and proximity to the gods. The conspicuous display and consumption of these ceremonies have elicited comparison with the potlatch of the Kwakiutl and related North American indigenous peoples. The assumption of such sacrifices was that the clan had settled in a particular area, marking the end of nomadism. This led eventually to the claim of ownership by kings of the wastelands, although a ruler's right to collect taxes was viewed not as a consequence of his ownership of wasteland but as his wage for protecting society. The new trends emphasized the importance of the priests and the aristocracy, Brahmins and Kshatriyas, who were the mainstay of kingship. The introduction, through royal sacrifices, of notions of divinity in kingship further strengthened the role of the priests. This was also the period in which kingship became hereditary. The technology of iron, or Krishna ayas, dark metal, as it was apparently called in later Vedic literature, and the migration into the Ganges Valley helped in stabilizing agriculture and settlements. Some of these settlements along the rivers evolved into towns, essentially as administrative and craft centers. By the mid-1st millennium BCE, the second urbanization, this time in the Ganges Valley, was underway. The development with the most far-reaching consequences for Indian culture is the structure of society that has come to be called caste. A hymn in the Rigveda contains a description of the primeval sacrifice and refers to the emergence of four groups from the body of the god Prajapati: the Brahmins, Brahmas, Kshatriyas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. This is clearly a mythologized attempt to describe the origin of the four Varnas, which came to be regarded as the four major classes in Indian society. The etymology of each is of interest. Brahman is one who possesses magical or divine knowledge, Brahman. Kshatriya is endowed with power or sovereignty, Kshatra, and Vaishya, derived from Vish, settlement, is a person settled on the land or a member of the clan. The derivation of the term Sudra, however, denoting a member of the group born to serve the upper three Varnas, is not clear, which may suggest that it is a non-Aryan word. In addition to Varna there are references to Jati, birth, which gradually came to acquire a close association with caste and appears to mean the endogamous kinship group. In the course of time the Brahmins became the preeminent priestly group, the intermediaries with the gods at the sacrificial rituals, and the recipients of large donations for priestly functions. In the process they acquired a number of privileges, such as exemption from taxes and inviolability. The Kshatriyas, who were to become the landowning families, assumed the role of military leaders and of the natural aristocracy having connections with royalty. The Vaishyas were more subservient, and, although their status was not as inferior as that of the Sudras, they appear to have been crucial to the economy. The traditional view of the Sudras is that they were non-Aryan cultivators who came under the domination of the Aryans and in many cases were enslaved and therefore had to serve the upper three groups. But not all references to the Sudras are to slaves. Sometimes wealthy Sudras are mentioned, and in later centuries some of them even became kings. The traditional view that Varna reflects the organization of Indian society has recently been questioned. It has been suggested that the rules of Varna conform to a normative or presumptive model, and that the concept of Jati is more central to caste functioning. This view is strengthened by the fact that the non-Brahmanical literature of later periods does not always conform to the picture of caste society depicted in the Dharmashastras. Thank you for joining us on this captivating exploration of the later Vedic period. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please give it a thumbs up and share it with fellow enthusiasts. And remember to subscribe to our channel for more exciting historical revelations. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the wonders of our past.